Here I am a sailor. My wife said I'm so conceited I joined the Navy to let the world see me. This is not so. The Army wants strong men, brave men, fighting men, so I joined the Navy. I would have joined sooner, but my father beat the tar out of me. When I went to the recruiting officer, he asked me, what are your qualifications? I said, I'm a descendant of Admiral Dewey on my father's side, Admiral Perry on my mother's side. The recruiting officer said, that's fine, but we want you for fighting, not for breeding. I said, sir, I also served in the last war. He said, what was your capacity? I said, 3 or 4 quarts a day. Now I'm a sailor. A sailor, that's a wolf in ship's clothing. It is my ambition to become a first-class petting officer. The only one who has less pockets than a sailor is a nudist. I got off to a bad start. I rushed up the gangplank and there was no ship. I'll never forget my first voyage. There was such a strong wind that it was the first time in my life I spit in my own eye. Boy, did I get seasick. My stomach went in and out with the tide. The voyage put color in my cheeks, green. I looked just like my passport photos. But it was an interesting trip. Something came up all the time. An officer walked over to me and said, I'm a naval doctor. Boy, they have specialists for everything these days. But he was a brilliant doctor. Would you believe it? He was treating a guy for 2 years for yellow jaundice before he found out he was Chinese. And he almost cured him. Finally, they had to put me in the ship's hospital. I was sick of the sea, but I felt much better as soon as the ship left the dock. But to this day, I get seasick just looking at a box of saltwater taffy. I served in the submarine division. I was almost thrown out. I like to sleep with the windows open. It was an atomic submarine. I asked the captain, when do we surface? He said, every 4 years to give you a chance to re-enlist. My ship was called the SS Insomnia because she turned and tossed all night. My bunk was so hard I had to get up 5 times a night just to get some rest. One morning I was so drowsy I looked out the porthole and kept muttering, what a lousy television show. 2 sardines were swimming alongside our submarine. One turned to the other and said, what's that? The other said, it's just a can full of people. I said to my buddy, I feel like telling off the captain again. He said, what do you mean again? I said, I felt like telling him off yesterday too. One day we had target practice. The captain told me, torpedoes are very expensive. Before you release one, make sure you're going to hit the target. Soon afterwards, I spotted the target ship. I shouted, target ship on the port side. The officer didn't answer. Target 400 yards away. Still no answer. 200 yards away, no answer. 50 yards, still nothing. I yelled, fire torpedo, I'll pay for it. A good sailor never gets lost at sea. He can tell the north from the south by the stars, east from the west by the shadows, and 7 and 11 from the dots. We didn't have dice on the ship because gambling wasn't allowed. So we used to take lumps of sugar, mark the dots on them, and use them for dice. One day the captain walked in our bunk unexpectedly, so I took the dice and threw them into a cup of coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the first floating crab game. But I was a proud sailor. They made me officer of the deck. I was in charge of all 52 cards. At first, I couldn't tell the starboard from the port, but then I learned to read the labels on the bottle. Our cook was a real character. I owe everything I have to him. Ulcers, headaches, heartburn. I said, what are we getting for dinner? He said, thousands of things. I said, what? He said, beans. It's a balanced diet. All the beans weigh the same. When I had my first meal, the mess cook handed me all the food at once. I said, what? No menu? No choice? He said, you got two choices. Take it or leave it. I said, this chicken you gave me was brought up in an incubator. The cook said, how do you know? I said, any chicken that had a mother wouldn't be as tough as this. Forget about the chicken. Have you got any spare ribs? He said, I'm built like any other man. There's a fly in the raisin cake. He said, bring back the fly and I'll give you a raisin. I said, just a minute. There's also a fly in the ice cream. He said, can I help it if he goes in for winter sports? And what do you call this stuff? Coffee or tea? It tastes like kerosene. The cook said, if it tastes like kerosene, it must be coffee, because the tea tastes like turpentine. I said, the coffee really tastes just like mud. He said, naturally, it was ground this morning. I couldn't stop him from making coffee his own way. He used tea bags. One day he asked for immediate furlough on the grounds that my wife was going to have a baby. The officer asked me, when is the baby due? I said, about 9 months after I go home. Of course, I don't want to brag about myself, but I was a big hero in the Navy. One day I saved a man from drowning. I jumped right in after him, pulled him to the side of the ship, but he killed himself anyway. He hung himself up on the mast. The captain came over to me. He said, Seaman Gale, I watched the whole thing. You saved the buddy from drowning. But why didn't you stop him from hanging himself on the mast? I said, Captain, he was wet. I thought he hung himself up to dry. Captain said, you are a nitwit. What would you do if a sudden storm came up starboard? I said, throw out an anchor, sir. And if another terrific storm sprang up aft, throw out another anchor. And if a storm hits you on bow, throw out another anchor. The captain said, where are you getting all your anchors from? From the same place you're getting all your storms, sir. We were all sitting around with the rear admiral's son. You know what a rear admiral is? That's a backseat driver in the Navy. The admiral's son said to us, I can't understand what all this talk is about favoritism in the Navy. I've been in the Navy 4 months now, and they treat me just like any other guy. We said, yes, Commander. Then the commander addressed me, Seaman Gale, I see you have an American flag tattooed on your chest. Yes, I said, and turned around to show him Uncle Sam tattooed on my back. That's wonderful, said the commander. You have the American flag in front to lead you to victory, and Uncle Sam to back you up. That's nothing, I said. You should see where I got our enemies. Well, first, our ship docked in Boston. I had a lot of trouble in this town. One day I staggered off the ship in my pajamas. A cop stops me and says, are you crazy? I'm sorry, officer, I'm a somnambulist. The cop says, I don't care what your religion is, you can't walk around like this. Another time I had a fight with a Marine. I was in a telephone booth talking to my girl. The Marine wants to use the phone, opens the door, grabs me by the neck, throws me out. But what got me real mad is when he grabbed my girl and threw her out too. Before we left, we had a landing drill and we were resting on a bridge when suddenly the ensign hollered, fall in! 30 guys drowned. Then we sailed for England. I finally figured out why the English are great tea drinkers. Did you ever taste their coffee? And that fog is really ridiculous. I followed what I thought was a girl for 3 blocks before I found out it was a Scotchman wearing kilts. Kilts, those are air-cooled pants. Everybody was looking for Jack the Ripper, not the killer, the laundryman. When I found the laundry shop, it had a sign, don't kill your wife, let us do your dirty work. I met a nice girl there who had a wonderful job smuggling Chesterfields into Parliament. She was a union worker. She wasn't satisfied with a good time. She wanted a good time and a half. I took her to a restaurant that had a sign, Mabel's Home Cooking. I asked the waiter, where's Mabel? He said she's home cooking. Then we went to a nightclub. It was raining cats and dogs. I stepped into a puddle. Just then a drunk came staggering up to me and said, hey, you, call me a cab. I said, I beg your pardon, I'm not a doorman. I happen to be a sailor in the United States Navy. He said, then get me a boat. They say a sailor has a girl in every port. If this is true, some guys must have 2 girls in every port, 'cause I ain't got any. It must be my bad luck. The other day I met a beautiful girl. I said, give me your phone number so I can call you up. She said, it's in the book. I said, what is your name? She said, that's in the book too. In London, I went into a gift shop to buy my sister a present. I asked the sales girl, how much for this handbag? She said, £10. I said, do you take anything off for cash? She said, listen, sailor, this is a reputable shop, not a burlesque show. This girl was an old maid. She waited so long for a ship to come in, her pier collapsed. One thing I was wondering about. Statistics say the average life of a dollar bill is 9 months. I can't understand it. Mine doesn't even last an hour. And my bank doesn't send me any more statements. They don't want to spend 4 cents to tell me I only got 3 cents. And I can't play billiards anymore. Whenever I see 3 balls together, I get homesick for my watch. The next country we visited was France. I stopped over in Paris. I went to visit the Eiffel Tower, which is a French erector set that made good. I saw a man standing on a sidewalk near some tables and chairs. I said, a typical French sidewalk cafe? He said, jerk, what sidewalk cafe? I just got evicted from my apartment. Boy, do they have shows there. We went in to see a fan dancer. The girl danced nothing but chicken feathers. And all the sailors watched her like a hawk. They also had midget fan dances for guys who were under the table. Then a line of beautiful girls came out dancing with nothing but their hats on. My buddy said to me, look at that blonde on the end. Can you picture her in a bathing suit? You should have seen all the different bathing suits the girls wore on the beaches. There was the Riviera bathing suit. That's a bottle of suntan lotion and a zipper. A Thanksgiving bathing suit shows more meat than dressing. An atomic bathing suit. The fallout is terrific. Most of the beach beauties are in backless and strapless bathing suits. They look skinless and boneless, helpless and hopeless, shapeless and drapeless. They look like bad photographs, underdeveloped and overexposed. They have Supreme Court figures, no appeal. Frankly, I like most of our waves better. They have a tough job saying yes ma'am all day and no sir all night. They claim they're just like sailors except they wear skirts. What a stupid statement. After all, they wear different hats too. There was one wave. She was more like a waterfall. She was so fat they should have kept the anchor on board and thrown her over. She was so cross-eyed when she cried, tears rolled down her back. Then we went to Italy. Italy is the land of the hero sandwich. They should call them the submarine sandwiches. One bite and you go under. One of my buddies and I got lost in the countryside for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, a huge St. Bernard with a keg of whiskey ambled up the path. I turned to my friend and said, look who's here, man's best friend. And he said, yeah, and look who's carrying it, a big dog. A big dog. A St. Bernard. That's a dog with a liquor license. From Italy, we set sail for Argentina. I found out a little about the language. Mañana means tomorrow, and pajama means tonight. And when I arrived in Buenos Aires, I didn't speak a word of the language, and in 5 minutes, I picked up a little Argentine. On our way back, there was a terrific storm, and we all felt the ship was sinking. The captain said, "Men, start praying." I said, "I don't know how to pray." He said, "Do something religious." So I took up a collection. After a while, I was stationed in Hawaii, which is an island surrounded by hula dancers, surrounded by sailors. And being a hula dancer is a shaky business. A hula dancer is a swing shift in a grass skirt. Just my luck, I forgot to bring along my lawnmower. They give the funniest weather reports in Hawaii. Today there will be high winds, followed by high skirts, followed by high sailors. From Hawaii, we set sail for home. Everything on our vessel was ship shape. As a matter of fact, I never saw a ship in such shape. Even our life preservers had holes in the middle. I didn't mind being in the Navy because I have a deal with the service. I go every other war. The last war ruined my nerves. I was almost drafted. But then they classified me 2FF, too feeble to fight. That's nothing. A friend of mine who was classified 8F. That's a brother of 2 4Fs. But I come from a remarkable family. I have a grandmother, 95 years old, and still doesn't use glasses. Drinks right out of the bottle. But actually, I'm a real Navy man. I wasn't christened when I was born. I was launched. The doctor hit me on the head with a champagne bottle and said I named the SS Gale. And when we were landing in the New York harbor, we saw the Statue of Liberty frantically waving her arms at our ship. Go back! Go back! I had a one-day leave. I rushed home to my wife. I hadn't seen her for 4 years. Now, there's a crazy woman for you. I come into the house. The first thing she did was turn out the lights. I'd like to do more for you, but I can't. My ship is double parked. At this time, I'd like to leave you with the words of the father of the American Navy, John Paul Jones, who said, "Don't give up the ship, sell it." Well, here I am, a private in the U.S. Army. Can you imagine me protecting you? I enlisted after I got a letter. It said, "Greetings." Greetings! It wasn't even my birthday. I'll never forget the day I got the letter. My wife came over to me and said in pear-shaped tones, I said, "What is it, Cobra?" She said, "There's a letter for you with no stamp." No stamp? Who do I know that owns a post office? I steamed it open, read the letter, and immediately started cutting off a finger. I found out later they needed me to replace a whack for active duty. The day I went for my physical, I was being examined by the doctor, and I began to holler, "Get me in the Army! Pass me! I want to fight! Make trouble! I want to kill!" The doctor said, "You're crazy." I said, "Write it down." "Never mind," he said, "get undressed." I said, "Doc, we haven't even been introduced." The doctor looked at me. He said, "Who sent you, the enemy?" He said, "Take off those Venetian blinds." I said, "Doc, these are my ribs." You can't put me in the Army, doctor. I have an impediment in my back." He said, "What's wrong with it?" I said, "I can't get it off the bed." "And besides, I can't see." He says, "Don't worry. We'll put you way up in the front. You won't miss a thing."
Would you believe I was the only soldier ever to get a blood transfusion before I took my blood test? I said, Doc, I'm not physically fit. One leg is a little bit shorter than the other. He said, well, you're gone, the ground is uneven. And that ear examination, one doctor looked in my right ear, the other in my left ear, and when they didn't see each other, they passed me. I said, Doc, I'm a sick man. He said, how did you get here? I said, I walked in. He said, then you're in the Army. But I was a breezy soldier, a draftee. And the clothes they give you in the Army, they come in two sizes, too big and too small. My shoes are so big, I turned around 3 times and they didn't even move. I wouldn't say the soles were thin, but if I put a dime under them, I could tell if it's heads or tails. And they put heels in front of your shoes to make the enemy think you're marching backwards. When I finally got out of the supply building, I tried on all my clothes and everything fit. I was so surprised I went straight to the hospital. I thought I was deformed. The first day in the Army, I walked right past the second lieutenant without saluting. He said, soldier, didn't you see the uniform? I said, what are you beefing about? Look at what they gave me. He said, come here, soldier. When you see the commanding general, tell him I want to see him. I said, yes, sir. 5 minutes later, the second lieutenant comes back and said, did the commanding general arrive yet? I said, no, sir. He said, make sure to tell him to come to my office immediately. 2 minutes later, a jeep pulls up. I walk over and I said, pardon me, sir, are you the commanding general? He said, yes. I said, boy, you're going to get it. You know the lieutenant's looking for you. And when I met my sergeant, I said, Sergeant, I come from a very nice family. I would like to have a room with running water. So he put me in the latrine. They finally assigned me to my barracks. Barracks, that's a crab game surrounded by bunks. And they put me in a tent that was 1776 war surplus. All that tent did was strain the rain. They woke me up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning for breakfast. At that hour, I can't even swallow. I used to go around shaking trees. No birds are going to sleep while I'm awake. The sergeant said, good morning, men. I didn't answer him. I couldn't even see him. He said, men, this is Tuesday morning. To me, it looks like Monday night. He said, men, we're going to have a few simple calisthenics. I want you to touch your toes, both feet off the ground, grab yourself by the hair, and hold yourself out at arm's length. All you guys with a high school education, step forward. Pick up all the cigarette butts around the barracks. All you guys with a college education, step forward. Pick up all the cigar butts around the barracks. And the rest of you dopes, keep your eyes open and learn something. Anybody know shorthand? 4 guys step forward. Go down to the mess hall, they're a little shorthanded there. Private Brown, what did you do in private life? I was a carpenter. Fixed that broken bench. Private Smith, what did you do in private life? I was a plumber. Fixed those broken pipes. Private Gale, what was your business in private life? I said, I was a CPA. Oh, a CPA, that's very good. Go down to the company office and balance the books. I said, I can't. He said, why not? You told me you're a CPA. I said, yes, I was a tailor, cleaning, pressing, alterations. Then we started to drill. All right, you guys, attention. Right face, you two. Left face, you two. The captain came over and said, Sergeant, what's the idea of saying you two after every order? He said, you see, sir, every time I give an order, these fellas under their breath say drop dead. So I say, right face, you two. He didn't like the way I was shooting on the firing range. We were 100 yards away from the target. The sergeant hollered, fire! Everybody hit the target but me. We moved up 50 yards, the sergeant hollered, fire! Again, everybody hit the target but me. We moved within 25 yards of the target. I missed again. The sergeant tapped me gently on the shoulder and said, Gale, fix your bayonet and charge. It's your only chance. The sergeant said, "Men, this is H Day. H standing for hike. We're going to take a little walk in our backyard." Backyard, all my life I should own that much real estate. And he said, after we get back from this hike, not one man in this outfit is getting liberty. I yelled, "Give me liberty or give me death." He said, "Who said that?" I said, "Patrick Henry." He said, "Men, the government has issued us some valuable equipment, and to make sure that it won't be stolen, we're going to take it with us." We carry the equipment. He carries a compass. I carry him. While we were on a hike, I noticed a small boy leading a jackass. We figured we'd have a little fun with him. I said, "Why are you holding on to your brother so tight?" The kid said, "So he won't join the army." I asked the sergeant, "What must a man be before he shall be buried with military honors?" The sergeant said, "He must be a captain." I said, "I thought he must be dead." "Gale, why is it so important not to lose your head in battle?" "Because I wouldn't have any place to put my helmet." But my sergeant was a good fellow. He was very sentimental. One day he said, "Men, when I was a little boy, I had a set of wooden soldiers, and there was a poor little boy in our neighborhood. One day my Sunday school teacher told us about the beauties of charity, so I gave my wooden soldiers to that poor little boy. One day I cried. I wanted them back. My mother said, 'Don't cry. Someday you'll get your little wooden soldiers back.' Men, that day has just come." And after all those maneuvers, we waked up a good appetite. We went to the mess hall. Mess hall, well named. The GIs call it Ptomaine Tavern. I enjoyed every meal I missed. The first thing on the menu is an unidentified liquid, a combination of Borscht and 7-Up. It makes you burp in Technicolor. Then comes a choice of oatmeal with lumps. The lumps I found in mine we used for golf balls. And that GI coffee, that's mud that was drafted. I wouldn't say the portions were small, but they gave us a set of binoculars to make the meals look bigger. The mess sergeant said to me, "Gale, did you say you wanted those eggs turned over?" I said, "Yes, to the Museum of Natural History." I told the sergeant, I said, "The meat tasted funny." He said, "If it's funny, then laugh." Just then a dust storm hit the camp. I rushed into the kitchen, hid under the stove. I noticed the lid of the soup kettle was open. I said to the cook, "If you tighten the lid on the kettle, we won't get that mud, dirt, and dust in our soup." The cook said, "Now look here, your business is to serve your country." I said, "Yes, that's right. My business is to serve my country, not to eat it." But I loved to go to the PX. There was a bald-headed soldier there selling hair tonic. I said, "Isn't it strange you're bald and you're selling hair tonic?" "What's so strange? I have a brother that sells brassieres." During maneuvers, I was a hero. I was the first man to go over the top. Somebody pushed me. I remember the first night in the foxhole. I was shaking with patriotism. It was really rough. Shells to the left of me, shells to the right of me. Somebody must have been eating peanuts. The sergeant said, "Shoot at will. 30,000 guys around me. Where am I going to find the guy called Will?" I tried to hide behind a tree, but all the officers beat me to it. The sergeant said, "Men, there's a bridge over there that's got 30,000 pounds of dynamite on it. I want someone to go on the bridge, patrol the bridge, guard the bridge, take care of the bridge. When that bridge blows up, blow this whistle." He said, "Private Gale, I want to volunteer, so I picked you." I said, "Sarge, can I get my furlough now?" He said, "Gale, go on the bridge, guard the bridge, patrol the bridge, take care of the bridge, and when that bridge blows up, blow this whistle." I said, "Going up or coming down?" I woke up in the morgue. I said to the nurse, "I'm not dead yet." She said, "Lay down. You want to make a fool of the doctors?" She said, "There's a bullet in your brain." I said, "Don't be silly. If I had any brains, I wouldn't be here." I wrote my mother a letter one day and said, "Dear Mom, things are rough out here in the maneuvers. Planes overhead, bombs falling all around me, and there's hand-to-hand combat." My mother answered, "Don't butt in."
And that's typical of the type of letters I used to get from my mother. Here's one I received. It said, "Dear Bob, B-O-O-B." I'm writing this letter to you very slow because I know you can't read very fast. Your brother George is in the Army 2 weeks, and already they made him a court-martial. Your sister Marie married a second lieutenant. The first one got away. And remember what your mother tells you. Get plenty of rest. Take your vitamins. And when you're in the foxholes, make sure you're wearing your galoshes. God bless you and keep you from your loving mother. And after basic training, they made me a pilot in the cavalry. I piloted here, I piloted there. But I guess I wasn't really cut out for this work. I was just too heavy for light work and too light for heavy work. I finally got a 3-day pass. My buddy fixed me up with a blind date. After taking one look at this girl, my sergeant began to look good to me. She wore braces on her teeth, and I wore braces on mine. Every time we kissed, sparks flew. She had an income tax figure. She should have been arrested for not filling out her form. And she was the kind of a girl you can bring home to mother, if you can trust father. Part of my money went to liquor, and part to women. The rest I spent foolishly. And there was a French boy in our outfit, and when we parted, he said, "Au revoir." I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "That means goodbye in French." I said, "Carbolic acid." He said, "What does that mean?" I said, "That means goodbye in any language." After I got the Distinguished Service Medal for extreme precaution under fire, and the Infantry Dysentery Cross with 2 poison ivy clusters, I was demoted from private to semi-private. Then I was called into the colonel's office. He said, "Private Gale, we're transferring you to the Air Force because you're no good on Earth."